In this video, I'm going to explain the difference between deflation and disinflation. Now, it's important to know the difference precisely because the people in charge are using your lack of knowledge to mislead and confuse you. And I'm going to explain these factors using very specific and easy to understand examples so that even if you haven't got a financial background, you can understand the difference between these terms. I'm also going to explain why the solution to the persistent inflation that we're facing every day is gold and silver. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Steph. I'm from lfas.com. And what we do is help people, businesses, and super funds invest over $50,000 into precious metals safely, securely, and legally. I've been in the bullion industry as both a customer and a seller for years and years, for almost half a decade now. And I make these videos purely and completely for free so that everybody understands how the bullion industry works, so that you're more likely to buy bullion, because I believe every single person on the planet should have at least some of their wealth inside of precious metals. Now, why do these terms matter? They matter because they affect each and every one of us every single day for our entire lives. That's why they matter. The majority of people that hear these terms, they hear them because they think they haven't got a financial background. They tune out completely and they think that they're not smart enough to understand. A lot of my clients and a lot of the people that I work with are tradies who believe that they're not intelligent enough to understand how the financial system works. You guys are literally the backbone of society, farmers and tradies. You without you guys, society would stop. So I believe you can understand this, and I think that these views have been placed on you in order to keep you ignorant. Understanding these terms is very important because then you can understand how you're being misled. Governments and media often twist these terms to get a better reaction from the public, especially when it comes to recently high inflation periods, which is what we've seen after COVID. They believe they can get away with this because they believe that most people are ignorant, which they are. Most people are ignorant, but it is by design. If we can better educate people on how the financial system works, there is a far less likelihood of more and more people to continue to get taken advantage of. One of my favorite quotes is by a man named Frederick Douglass, and it reads, "Knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave." Because if you're smart enough and you can understand where the chains are and how the shackles are tied to you, you're more likely to set yourself free. That's why it's important to understand these terms and a lot of other financial terms, because when you hear them, you can eventually just call bullshit. You can see reality for what it is rather than what the authority is telling you it is. What's the actual difference between these two terms? Deflation essentially simply means a decline in prices between a period of time. When the prices of goods and services goes down, we are in a period of deflation. Overall, that sounds pretty good. Prices go down, my dollars go further. I can buy more goods and services with the exact same amount of dollars that I had in the previous period. Typically, what central banks do that release these figures of deflation or inflation, they use a basket of goods. Because of human error, ignorance, or straight, we'll just say cheekiness, they manipulate the basket of goods to make these figures look better. So you can't even really trust what they're saying. Often, deflation is associated with recessions when the money supply dries up and people reduce spending, wages fall, people lose their jobs, stuff like that happens. In this financial system that we've got currently, deflation is often associated with something negative. This can be caused by a wide range of things like debt deflation, where people actually pay their debt off, which reduces the money supply, not spending their money, falling in the money supply, as I mentioned before, economic contractions by the raising of interest rates via the central banks. In the current system that we have, any sort of deflation is a negative thing, and they try to make the public believe that this is a negative thing that should not be occurring. The current system is designed to benefit people who get into debt rather than savers. This is why deflation is bad, because it benefits savers. If prices were going higher and higher every period, you are better off to grab future economic debt benefit through debt, bring it to the present, and spend it now rather than later when prices have increased. This is how the system works. it benefits people who get into debt rather than those who save. Because if you saved in future periods, prices are guaranteed to be higher because of inflation and the increasing of the money supply. This is done by creating loans and debt. Commercial banks and central banks create debt, which creates money out of thin air and then charge interest. That's how the money supply increases. So that's why in the current system we've got, it's actually really bad to leave your money in a bank account and do nothing with it because inflation will sneakily eat away at its purchasing power. Whereas disinflation, so not deflation, disinflation is a slowing down of inflation. Another way these authorities or central banks say it is inflation is going down, but prices are still going up. Do you see what they've tried to do there? When inflation is decreasing, what they're saying is, okay, prices are still increasing, but they're just increasing at a slower rate. So you're telling me that next year, I know the cost of everything will still go up, but at least it's going up at a slower rate. That's basically what they're telling us. A great example of this is, say, last period's inflation was, now periods are arbitrary. Last period's inflation was 7%, and this period's inflation is 4%. We've experienced disinflation because inflation has decreased now in future periods. Now, I want to make it very clear. I'm going to say it again. This does not mean prices are going down. This means prices are still going up, but they're just going up at a slower rate. Now, this can happen because inflation has been hot and the central bank raises interest rates, which cools off the economy. People get into less and less debt, which reduces the money supply, or in better terms, stops the increasing money supply increasing so much. So it increases at a slower rate. As you can tell, it's a very misleading way to document that their methods are working. They do it on purpose. Another great quote by a man named James A. Garfield, who was a president of the United States. And this is why the creation of money and the control of the money supply is so important. Even the previous president had said it. Whoever controls the volume of money in our country is absolute master of all industry and commerce. When you realize that the entire system is very easily controlled one way or another by a few powerful men at the top, you will not have to be told how periods of inflation and depression originate. Now, he was shot and killed. Don't know why. I'm putting my blind glasses on. Don't know why. But it's very interesting that when very prominent people start to talk about the banking system and have questions about it, they get shot. Really weird. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. What are some real world examples that'll make these terms more easily understandable? We'll just use bread. Make it super simple. Just one single thing that you can buy in the economy. Bread, and you can use the Australian dollar to buy bread. If bread last year costed $3 and this year in the same month in exactly 12 months time it costs $2.50, we have suffered deflation. The price of goods and services, in this case bread, has gone down. In the future, had I known a year ago, I would have rather save those $3 and then buy, if I wasn't starving or anything, and then buy that bread in a year's time because it would be worth $2.50. You can see how, on a larger scale, if this was happening persistently, people would be incentivized to save their money. Whereas, say, for example, last year bread costed $3. This year, bread costed $3.30. We were in a period of inflation. The bread has stayed the same. It has costed more money because prices of goods and services has increased. In other words, the dollar, the Australian dollar, in this case, in our example, the Australian dollar has gone down in value because for this exact same thing, it costs more money to purchase the exact same thing. Period of inflation, that period. A year from now, let's just say bread's price would go up to $3.45. As you'll notice, we're still in a period of inflation. However, we are also experiencing disinflation because the previous year's increase was 10%, $3 to $3.30. Whereas From $3.30 to $3.45, it was an increase of 5%. So a 10% inflation rate in the previous period. And then in the next period, if we've got a magical ball, it's gone up 5%. So we experience a period of disinflation. Central banks, what they do in periods like these, especially after what we've seen with that, that pandemic I really can't talk about, prices rapidly and sharply increase, huge levels of inflation, and that has begun to cool off. And they're saying it's a victory. Oh my God, a fantastic victory. We've cooled down and calmed down inflation. Inflation is decreasing. Yeah, but the prices of goods and services are still going up. I know for a fact it's still going to be more expensive next year than this year. So what if it's a smaller rate? Most people are struggling regardless, and the prices are still going up. Do you see where this is misleading? They do this on purpose so that nobody gets pissed off, so that the general public doesn't get pissed off. Imagine if they said, all right, prices are not going to increase as much, but they're still going to increase forever. It's not that great of a look. That is why they use this lingo to an average population that doesn't really understand how finance works or how percentages works or anything like that. Rightly so, because they're too busy, I don't know, taking care of their family. They do it on purpose to mislead and to lie. This is because people who can be misled and lied to are easier to control. So why does this language and terminology benefit them? Well, it keeps the population calm and less reactive, which is absolutely fantastic as a central planner. It helps justify looser monetary policy through the use of lower interest rates so that it encourages more and more people to get into debt. It deflects the attention from real devaluation of the currency and real losses in purchasing power. It prevents people from waking up to what's going on, which is that inflation is baked into the cake and that it will continue forever, and it stops people from buying gold and silver. Gold and silver are like a mirror, and it reveals and it shows reality. Look at the gold price and silver price in the recent years. Inflation has been terrible, and gold and silver prices have absolutely skyrocketed in recent years. This is because they tell the truth. Although they're manipulated, they still have to eventually tell the truth. So, what's the solution to all of this? Well, the only solution is to opt out of a system that does not serve you. The system now will continue to inflate, it will continue to print money out of nothing. So, we must opt out of it. Gold and silver are the only way to completely opt out of the system because these assets are real money. These assets are not affected by government intervention. They're nobody else's liability. Central banks have been buying these assets like there's no tomorrow, especially in recent years, because they understand this. All the smart money, the guys who run the world, have been buying all the gold they can get their hands on. They've done it on purpose because they understand that gold and silver are money. They're nobody else's liability. So, if you would like to take back control of your finances, if you don't want to see your savings continually be worth less and less every single period due to inflation, regardless of the disinflation that has occurred in the recent periods, inflation will continue forever. It will do so until the currency itself fails. So, if you would like to maintain and control your wealth in a way that is yours and yours alone, that is unreliant on the system itself, then please, for the love of God, buy gold and silver, whether through me or through another bullion dealer. I reckon every single human on the planet should buy gold and silver and have a small portion of their wealth inside of gold and silver because it makes us less reliant on the system. We get more independence and freedom, and that's the best thing in the world. So, if you would like to purchase gold and silver, head to aletheos.com. I work with all sorts of entities. I made this video for everybody else because I believe every single human on the planet should, again, own precious metals. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great rest of your week. I will catch you later on the next one.